you got back from Maddy's a while ago, and I just got out of the shower and I was boiling myself some tea, but I boiled too much water, so I brought you a cup. Is everything alright? Why are you crying? Oh, darling. Alright, you know what? Your big sister is gonna take care of it. I'm just gonna put the cup of tea on your nightstand, and I'm gonna be right back. You just get comfortable, lay down, get comfortable. I'm gonna get some stuff and I'll be right back, okay? Don't you dare lock your door. Your big sister is gonna take care of it, yeah? Alright. Alright, there we are. I brought a lot of stuff. So, first of all, I have this pillow for you. It's warm. It's filled with cherry seeds. So, you can just take it and use it to keep yourself warm, alright? There you go. Alright. Is that comfortable? Okay. Alright. And then, because I noticed that you've been crying, so I brought this wet cloth, and I would just like to wipe your face. Is that okay? Alright. So, I'm just going to gently wipe your face, and especially under your eyes, because we don't want you to have bags tomorrow, okay? Alright. When I've been crying, don't act so surprised, you know that it happens. So when I've been crying, I like a cold cloth to kind of soothe my eyes, because they get really hot and swollen from crying. So, alright. That's better, isn't it? Okay. So, what I've also brought, it's freezing in your room. You know what? Okay. You need a blanket, my dear, because, let me see. Your hands are ice cold and I don't want to touch your feet. You need a blanket. Jeez. I'll never understand why you just lay there freezing and don't get a blanket by yourself. Alright, so here, let me alright. That's a bit better, isn't it? Okay. So are you comfortable now? Okay. And I brought some snacks for us. You don't mind sharing, do you? So, I didn't bother getting us a bowl because I'm sorry, I'm getting your bed all dirty. Yeah. Take some. Okay. And now tell me what's up. Yeah, I know that you went to Maddy's earlier, but I don't really. Oh. do you remember Chelsea, that one girl that came over here a few times? Yeah, she was a similar friend. So friend. She always made fun of me and talked down on me and humiliated me in front of my friends, and she also told me not to eat any snacks, so you better eat some. And in the end I got rid of her because she was being a really toxic friend, and I don't need that in my life, and neither do you. So I get that Maddy is like the popular one in your friends group, but if I were you, I would leave her. Leave her. Because she's not good for you. And I know I sound like mom right now, but what you just described, the humiliating you, the telling you that you don't have a chance with your crush, that's what a toxic friend does. And the few times she was over here, I mean, I didn't really talk to her because I was mostly in my room, but I didn't really like her anyways, so I'm gonna steal those back from you. There's enough for the both of us. Alright, here we go. Okay. So I know that it can be tough. Just know that you're better off without her, and I know that it's difficult to let go of a friend, especially if you've been friends for that long. But if you say she has changed and so has the friendship, it's probably better to let her go, especially if her being your friend is making you uncomfortable. So I need a pillow. You have way too many pillows in your bed, but I'm not complaining. Alright, so where yeah, so you know what I'm saying, or what I'm gonna say is gonna sound controversial. It's a one-time offer, but if you do have the feeling that you're not really welcome in your friends group anymore, your friendship group, I mean, I'm not that much older, so technically you could hang out with me and my friends, and I know that like some of them are also kind of your friends, so it wouldn't be that weird, especially since I'm the oldest one in my friend group, and there are also some younger ones. So if you'd like to, like the next time, I think we want to go shopping like next week, and if you'd like to, you can come with us. And if anyone says anything mean to you, I'm gonna protect you. I'm the only one who can roast you, alright? So, you haven't even tried the tea yet, have ya? It's probably still too hot. Yeah, even if the cup is too hot to hold. So, I definitely need to cut my hair. It's getting way too, well, not way too long, because the length isn't what bothers me. It's just, it's getting annoying, like brushing it and, you know, like taking care of it. Because, I mean, you didn't inherit the curls, but I did. And let me tell you, taking care of curly hair is, you're lucky with your straight hair. And I'd love to have straight hair, but I don't. So, I guess we'll just gotta deal with it. Anyways. Did you know that you have the best big sister in the world. That's right. I mean, I can see why you're worried about school starting again and all that stuff, but your bed is so uncomfortable. I do think that it's gonna be okay. After all, you don't have that much school left, like speaking like from a yearly perspective. And I know that in 2 years, when I am finished with school, is going to be different because I'm going to be going to college probably. But until then, you still have me to protect you from all the meanies. I think I just put some of my hair into the bag of crisps. Alright. I also brought something with me, because I remembered that you told me that you wanted to go to bed a bit earlier. Wait, you have something on your cheek. Right. So I've brought something with me, which is a book, and I don't read it as much as I used to when I was younger. But this is, it was one of my favorite books when I was younger. And since you mentioned that you wanted to go to bed a bit earlier this night, I thought that I could read to you a little bit. And look, there's even a picture of a cat inside. So, what else do you want for a good night? Well, sleep story. Alright, so I have fuzzy socks, so get comfortable, and I am gonna read to you a little bit while here. So this book, which was my favorite when I was younger, is called Inkheart, and I think it actually it is a German book, written by someone from Germany, but it was translated, so it's available in English, and I can read it to you. Should I read the little text on the back first? Okay. So, it says, dare to read it aloud, with this really, really cool D. And then it says, Maggie loves books. So does her father, Mo, a bookbinder, although he has never read aloud to her since her mother mysteriously disappeared. They live quietly until the night a stranger knocks at their door. He has come with a warning that forces Mo to reveal an extraordinary secret, a storytelling secret that will change their lives forever. So, what do you think? It sounds good, doesn't it? Okay. And there's a bird. I think, what's this breed called again? I just remember the German name. Alright. Let's start. And there's a little poem in the beginning. If you are a dreamer, come in. If you are a dreamer, a wisher, a liar, a hoper, a prayer, a magic bean buyer, if you're a pretender, come sit by my fire. For we have some flax golden tales to spin. Come in, which is by Shel Silverstein, a name that I have never heard before. Yeah. pages are designed. I love it. It's such a pretty book and such a beautiful story. So, let me see. Alright. Okay. 1. A stranger in the night. The moon shone in the rocking horse's eye, and in the mouse's eye too, when Dolly fetched it out from under his pillow to see. The clock went tick-tock, and in the stillness he thought he heard a little bare feet running across the floor, then laughter and whispering, and a sound like the pages of a big book being turned over. L.M. Boston, The Children of Green Know. And now the real story begins. Rain fell that night, a fine, whispering rain. Many years later, Maggie had only to close her eyes, and she could still hear it, like tiny fingers tapping on the window pane. Widow pane. What even is a widow pane? A dog barked somewhere in the darkness, and however often she tossed and turned, Maggie couldn't get to sleep. The book she had been reading was under her pillow, pressing its cover against her ear as if to lure her back into its printed pages. I'm sure it must be very comfortable sleeping with a hard, rectangular thing like that under your head, her father had teased the first time he found a book under her pillow. Go on, admit it, the book whispers its story to you at night. Sometimes yes, Maggie had said, but it only works for children, which made Mo tweak her nose. Mo. Maggie had never called her father anything else. That night, when so much began and so many things changed forever, Maggie had one of her favorite books under her pillow, and since the rain wouldn't let her sleep, she sat up, rubbed the drowsiness from her eyes, and took it out. Its pages rustled promisingly when she opened it. Maggie thought the first whisper sounded a little different from one book to another, depending on whether or not she already knew the story it was going to tell her. Oh God, my shoulder is twitching. I need to change position. And another change. But she needed light. She had a box of matches hidden in the drawer of her bedside table. Mo had forbidden her to light candles at night. He didn't like fire. Fire devours books, he always said. But she was 12 years old. She could surely be trusted to keep an eye on a couple of candle flames. Maggie loved to read by candlelight. She had 5 candlesticks on the windowsill, and she was just holding the lighted match to one of the black wicks when she heard footsteps outside. She blew out the match in alarm. Oh, how well she remembered it, even many years later, and knelt to look out of the window, which was wet with rain. Then she saw him. The rain cast a kind of pallor on the darkness, and the stranger was little more than a shadow. Only his face gleamed white as he looked up at Maggie. His hair clung to his wet forehead. The rain was falling on him, but he ignored it. He stood there motionless, arms crossed over his chest, as if that might at least warm him a little. And he kept on staring at the house. I must go and wake Mo, thought Maggie. But she stayed put, her heart thudding, and went on gazing out into the night, as if the stranger's stillness had infected her. Suddenly, he turned his head, and Maggie felt as if he were looking straight into her eyes. She shot off the bed so fast the open book fell to the floor, and she ran barefoot out into the dark corridor. This was the end of May, but it was chilly in the old house. There was still a light on in Mo's room. He often stayed up reading late into the night. Maggie had inherited her love of books from her father. When she took refuge from a bad dream with him, nothing could lull her to sleep better than Mo's calm breathing beside her and the sound of the pages turning. Nothing chased nightmares away faster than the rustle of printed paper. But the figure outside the house was no dream. The book Mo was reading that night was bound in pale blue linen. Later, Maggie remembered that too. What unimportant little details stick in the memory. That's true. And you know what else is unimportant? What Maddy said to you, so... Where was I? Mo, there's someone out in the yard. Her father raised his head and looked at her with the usual absent expression he wore when she interrupted his reading. It always took him a few moments to find his way out of that other world, the labyrinth of printed letters. Someone out in the yard? Are you sure? Yes. He's staring at our house. Mo put down his book. So what were you reading before you went to sleep? Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde? Maggie frowned. Please, Mo, come and look. He didn't believe her, but he went anyway. Maggie tugged him along the corridor so impatiently that he stubbed his toe on a pile of books, which was hardly surprising. Stacks of books were piled high all over the house, not just arranged in neat rows on bookshelves, the way other people kept them. Oh no. The books in Mo and Maggie's house were stacked on the tables, on chairs, in the corners of the rooms. There were books in the kitchen and books in the laboratory, books on the TV set and in the wardrobe, small piles of books, tall piles of books, books thick and thin, books old and new. They welcomed Maggie down to breakfast with invitingly open pages. They kept boredom at bay when the weather was bad. And sometimes you fell over them. He's just standing there, whispered Maggie, leading Mo into her room. Has he got a hairy face? If so, he could be a werewolf. Oh, stop it! Maggie looked at him sternly, although his jokes made her feel less scared. Already, she hardly believed anymore in the figure standing in the rain, until she knelt down again at the window. There, do you see him? She whispered. Mo looked out through the raindrops running down the pane and said nothing. Didn't you promise burglars would never break into our house because there's nothing here to steal? Whispered Maggie. He's not a burglar, replied Mo, but as he stepped back from the window, his face was so grave that Maggie's heart thudded faster than ever. Go to bed, Maggie, he said. This visitor has come to see me. He left the room before Maggie could ask what kind of visitor, for goodness sake, turned up in the middle of the night. She followed him anxiously. As she crept down the corridor, she heard her father taking the chain off the front door, and when she reached the hall, she saw him standing in the open doorway. The night came in, dark and damp, and the rushing of the rain sounded loud and threatening. Dust Finger, called Mo into the darkness. Is that you? Dust Finger? What kind of a name was that? Maggie couldn't remember ever hearing it before, yet it sounded familiar, like a distant memory that wouldn't take shape properly. At first, it seemed still outside, except for the rain falling, murmuring, as if the night had found its voice. But then footsteps approached the house, and the man emerged from the darkness of the yard, his long coat so wet with rain that it clung to his legs. For a split second, as the stranger stepped into the light spilling out of the house, Maggie thought she saw a small furry head over his shoulder, snuffling as it looked out of his rucksack, and then quickly disappearing back into it. Dust Finger wiped his wet face with his sleeve and offered Mo his hand. How are you, Silver Tongue? He asked. It's been a long time. Hesitantly, Mo took the outstretched hand. A very long time, he said, looking past his visitor as if he expected to see another figure emerge from the night. Come in, you'll catch your death. Maggie says you've been standing out there for some time. Maggie? Ah, yes, of course. Dust Finger let Mo lead him into the house. He screwed scrutinized Maggie so thoroughly that she felt quite embarrassed and didn't know where to look. In the end, she just stared back. She's grown. You remember her? Of course. Maggie noticed that Mo double-locked the door. How old is she now? Dustfinger smiled at her. It was a strange smile. Maggie couldn't decide whether it was mocking, supercilious, or just awkward. She didn't smile back. 12, said Mo. 12? My word. Dustfinger pushed his dripping hair back from his forehead. It reached almost to his shoulders. Maggie wondered what color it was when it was dry. The stubble round his narrow-lipped mouth was gingery, like the fur of the stray cat Maggie sometimes fed with a saucer of milk outside the door. Ginger hair sprouted on his cheeks too, sparse as a boy's first beard, but not long enough to hide 3 long, pale scars. They made Dustfinger's face look as if it had been smashed and stuck back together again. 12, he repeated. Of course. She was, let's see, she was 3 then, wasn't she? Mo nodded. Come on, I'll find you some dry clothes. Impatiently, as if he were suddenly in a hurry to hide the man from Maggie, he led his visitor across the hall. And Maggie, he said over his shoulder, you go back to sleep. Then, without another word, he closed his workshop door. Maggie stood there, rubbing her cold feet together. Go back to sleep. Sometimes, when they'd stayed up late yet again, Mo would toss her down on her bed like a bag of walnuts. Sometimes he chased her around the house after supper until she escaped into her room, breathless with laughter. And sometimes he was so tired he lay down on the sofa and she made him a cup of coffee before she went to bed. But he had never, ever sent her off to her room so brusquely. A foreboding, clammy and fearful came into her heart, as if, along with the visitor whose name was so strange yet somehow familiar, some menace had slipped into her life. And she wished, so hard it frightened her, that she had never fetched Mo, and Dustfinger had stayed outside until the rain washed him away. When the door of the workshop opened again, she jumped. Still there, I see, said Mo. Go to bed, Maggie. Please. He had that little frown over his nose that appeared only when something was really worrying him, and he seemed to look straight through her as if his thoughts were somewhere else entirely. The foreboding in Maggie's heart grew, spreading black wings. Send him away, Mo, she said as he gently propelled her towards her room. Please send him away. I don't like him. Mo leaned in her open doorway. He'll be gone when you get up in the morning. Word of honor. Word of honor? No crossed fingers? Maggie looked him straight in the eye. She could always tell when Mo was lying, however hard he tried to hide it from her. No crossed fingers, he said, holding both hands out to show her. Then he closed her door, even though he knew she didn't like that. Maggie put her ear to it, listening. She could hear the clink of china. So the man with the sandy beard was getting a nice cup of tea to warm him up. I hope he catches pneumonia, thought Maggie, though he needn't necessarily die of it. Maggie heard the kettle whistling in the kitchen, and Mo carrying a tray of clattering crockery back to the workshop. When that door closed, she forced herself to wait a few more seconds, just to be on the safe side. Then she crept out back into the passage. There was a notice hanging on the door of Mo's workshop, a small metal plaque. Maggie knew the words on it by heart. When she was 5, she had often practiced reading the old-fashioned, spindly lettering. Some books should be tasted, some devoured, but only a few should be chewed and digested thoroughly. Back then, when she still had to climb on a box to read the plaque, she had thought the chewing and digesting were meant literally and wondered, horrified, why Mo had hung on his workshop door the words of someone who vandalized books. Now, she knew what the plaque really meant, but tonight she wasn't interested in written words. Spoken words were what she wanted to hear, the words being exchanged in soft, almost inaudible whispers by the two men on the other side of the door. "Don't underestimate him," she heard Dustfinger say. His voice was so different from Mo's. No one else in the world had a voice like her father's. Mo could paint pictures in the empty air with his voice alone. He'd do anything to get hold of it. That was Dustfinger again. And when I say anything, I can assure you I mean anything. I'll never let him have it. That was Mo. He'll still get his hands on it, one way or another. I tell you, they're on your trail. It wouldn't be the first time. I've always managed to shake them off before. Oh yes? And for how much longer, do you think? What about your daughter? Are you telling me she actually likes moving around the whole time? Believe me, I know what I'm talking about. It was so quiet behind the door that Maggie scarcely dared breathe, in case the two men heard her. Finally, her father spoke again, hesitantly, as if his tongue found it difficult to form the words. "Then what do you think I ought to do? Come with me. I'll take you to them." A cup clinked, the sound of a spoon against china. How loud small noises sound in the silence. You know how much Capricorn thinks of your talents. He'd be glad if you took it to him, of your own free will. I'm sure he would. The man he found to replace you is useless. Capricorn, another peculiar name. Dustfinger had uttered it as if the mere sound might scorch his tongue. Maggie wriggled her chilly toes and wrinkled her cold nose. She didn't understand much of what the two men were saying, but she tried to memorize every single word of it. It was quiet again in the workshop. "Oh, I don't know," said Mo at last. He sounded so weary that it tore at Maggie's heart. "I'll have to think about it. When do you think his men will get here?" "Soon." The word dropped like a stone into the silence. "Soon," repeated Mo. "Very well. I'll have made up my mind by tomorrow. Do you have somewhere to sleep?" "Oh, I can always find a place," replied Dustfinger. "I'm managing quite well these days, although it's still all much too fast for me." His laugh was not a happy one. "But I'd like to know what you decide. May I come back tomorrow, about midday?" "Yes, of course. I'll be picking Maggie up from school at 1:30. Come after that." Maggie heard a chair being pushed back and scurried back to her room. When the door of the workshop opened, she was just closing her bedroom door behind her. Pulling the covers up to her chin, she lay there, listening as her father said goodbye to Dustfinger. "And thank you for the warning anyway," she heard him add as Dustfinger's footsteps moved away, slowly and uncertainly, as if he were reluctant to leave, as if he hadn't said everything he'd wanted to say. But at last he was gone, and only the rain kept drumming its wet fingers on Maggie's window. When Mo opened the door of her room, she quickly closed her eyes and tried to breathe as slowly as you do in a deep, innocent sleep. But Mo wasn't stupid. In fact, he was sometimes terribly clever. "Maggie, put one of your feet out of bed," he told her. Reluctantly, she stuck her toes out from under the blanket and laid them in Mo's warm hand. They were still cold. "I knew it," he said. "You've been spying. Can't you do as I tell you just for once?" Sighing, he tucked her foot back underneath the nice warm blankets. Then he sat down on her bed, passed his hands over his tired face, and looked out of the window. His hair was dark as Mo's skin. Maggie had fair hair like her mother, who she only knew from a few faded photographs. "You should be glad you look more like her than me," Mo always said. "My head wouldn't look at all good on a girl's neck." But Maggie wished she did look more like him. There wasn't a face in the world she loved more. "I didn't hear what you were saying anyway," she murmured. "Good." Mo stared out the window, as if Dustfinger were still standing in the yard. Then he rose and went to the door. "Try to get some sleep," he said. But Maggie didn't want to sleep. "Dustfinger, what sort of a name is that?" she asked. "And why does he call you a silver tongue?" Mo did not reply. "And this person who's looking for you, I heard Dustfinger called him Capricorn. Who is he?" "No one you want to meet." Her father didn't turn round. "I thought you didn't hear anything. Good night, Maggie." This time he left her door open. The light from the passage fell on her bed, mingling with the darkness of the night that seeped in through the window, and Maggie lay there waiting for the dark to disappear and take her fear of some evil meanness away with it. Only later did she understand that the evil had not appeared for the first time that night. It had just slunk back in again.